In our last conversation, we talked about what it's like to be someone with too many interests, someone who gets pulled in a dozen directions because everything feels worth exploring. Today, we're going to look at something which is very similar to that, because it's not just that you have many interests, but it's that your mind keeps switching between them, and there's a very specific reason why that happens. Let me summarize your situation. It might have probably happened to you many times. You start something, you're actually into it, you make a little progress, feel good about it, and then without any obvious reason, you just stop caring. Not because something went wrong, not because you failed, you just moved on. And a few weeks later, you're starting something new with the same energy you had the first time. It seems like a small problem, but it's not. You need to understand your brain. It's not built for long-term goals. It's built for solving immediate problems. When you start something, and sometimes later it starts to feel familiar, when the newness fades away and what's left is just work, your brain starts looking for something that feels more urgent and more alive. It feels it's worth paying attention to. This is called goal habituation. What is habituation? Habituation just means that your brain stops responding to things it gets used to. Let me give you an example. Have you ever noticed that you stop noticing the sound of a fan after a few minutes, even though it's still running? Brain habituation is the exact reason for this. Your brain understands that it's not a new information anymore, so it moves it to the background. The same thing happens with your goals. In the beginning, a goal feels new. Your brain lights up. You feel motivated, focused, excited to start. But once you've been working on it for a while, it stops feeling new, and your brain starts pulling your attention to something else. And for a moment, you'll feel that you need to find something more reliable and perfect, something that hits differently. Now, this connects directly to what we talked about last time. If you're someone with many interests, you already have a dozen things competing for your attention at any given moment. So when your brain gets bored of the current goal and starts looking for something new, it doesn't have to look far. There's always another interest ready and waiting, another idea that still has that fresh feeling to it. That's why this pattern, this loop, tends to be so consistent for people like you. And once you can understand this loop, it starts to lose some of its power over you. So now the question is, what actually breaks this never-ending loop? It's not discipline, it's not willpower. Those things help, but they're not the root of it. What breaks this loop is understanding where the switching happens, and it almost always happens at the same point. Let me simplify it for you. Think about any goal you've abandoned. There's usually a moment somewhere in the middle where the excitement fades off, and what's left was just the unglamorous part, the repetitive part, the part where you're not making fast, visible progress anymore. You're just doing the work, quietly, without much feedback. That's the moment your brain decides this goal is no longer worth giving attention and starts looking for something else. Researchers call this the valley of disappointment, the gap between where you started and where results actually start showing up. And it's the gap where almost everyone quits, not because the goal was wrong, but because the brain reads no visible progress as this isn't working. The mistake isn't in quitting. The mistake is not knowing that this valley exists. So when you hit it, you think something is wrong and you start over somewhere else. And the new thing feels exciting again because you haven't hit that valley yet. But soon after some time, when you hit that valley again, your brain again switches the goal. So instead of trying to stay motivated, which is fighting against the way your brain works, try to make your current goal feel new again, not by changing the goal itself, but by changing what you're measuring. When you've been working on something for a while and the excitement fades, your brain is telling you it's not seeing enough novelty. So give it some. Not a new goal, just a new angle on the same one. I know you're overwhelmed. Let me make it simple for you to understand. If you're learning something, instead of measuring how much you've learned, shift to measuring how well you can explain it to someone else. That's a genuinely different challenge. Your brain treats it as new. If you're building something, instead of measuring how far you are from finished, shift to measuring how much better today's work is compared to last week's. Again, different input, different feeling. By doing this, you're not tricking yourself. You're just giving your brain the novelty signal it needs to stay engaged without actually switching goals. One more thing, and this is simple but super effective. When you feel the urge to switch, when a new idea starts looking very attractive and your current goal starts feeling heavy, wait 3 days before you do anything. Not forever, just 3 days. Because the new idea always feels exciting in the first moment. But if you sit with it for 3 days and it still feels worth pursuing, that's different. That's not novelty talking. That might be something real. And if after 3 days the old goal still feels heavy, that's information too. Maybe it's not the right goal. Maybe the timing is wrong. Either way, you'll know more than you did in the first moment of excitement. You're not someone who can't commit. You're someone whose mind is alive and restless and always looking for something which is worth paying attention to. That's not a flaw in you, but it's dangerous. Okay, think about the last goal you walked away from. Do you actually know why you stopped? Or did you just stop because you didn't feel like continuing it further? So this issue seems very small, but it's a bigger one. You need to understand your brain. You need to shift the way you see your brain. By the way, there's a simple breakdown of goal habituation and how to work with it in the description. It's free and worth looking at. And if you haven't seen the last video on having too many interests, that one is the right place to start. The link is right there. Till then, stay positive. See you in the next one.